Hi guys, my name is Ben Guilford. I'm the owner of the Firebrick Company and I'm here today, super excited to introduce you to our range of stainless steel charcoal grills. So we have been working on these grills since 2015. We made our very first model and this is where we're at today. And this has come an awfully long way from the first grill that we made, and I just think it's beautiful. I'm an engineer, so my background very briefly, I studied mechanical and aerospace engineering, and then I set up my own business designing and making these products because it's just something that I love and I'm passionate about. And so I've put that learning, specifically that mechanical engineering learning, into the creation of this grill. So I just want to walk you through some of the details. So if you're looking for a 30-second little video, this is not that. This is going to be a little bit more in depth, taking you through what it is that makes this grill special. The first thing that I want to share with you about these grills is the fact that they are made right here in Melbourne, Australia. We design them here and we are doing the manufacturing of them here as well. And we're really proud of that. I've always tried in our business to keep as many jobs here as possible. And so bringing this online has meant we've been able to employ some more people to help us put them together, to do the welding, to do the folding, to do all the assembly work, which is really exciting. So made in Australia, very proud of that. Now let's talk a little bit about the different models that we have available. This is our G3 charcoal grill with the G3 variable rack system installed. We also have a G2 charcoal grill, which is basically exactly the same, it's just slightly shorter. You'll notice that the G3 has 3 sets of grilling surfaces. The G2, you guessed it, has room for 2 sets. So both of the models can come freestanding, as you see here, on wheels, or built in, without the wheels, with just short legs, ready to install into your cabinetry. So to my right, we have the G3 inbuilt grill. And one of the things I want to point out before I get into the nitty-gritty of the design detail is the fact that you can buy the grill without the variable rack system. That applies to both models, the G2 and the G3. You can buy just the grill if that's what you want. Equally, you can also buy the variable rack system without the grill if that's what you want. You might have designed your own open hearth, for example, your own firebox effectively, and you're looking for that Argentinian system to fit over it. You can purchase the G2 variable rack system and the G3 variable rack system as separate items. If you do purchase one of the grills without the variable rack system, you'll get a full set of round bar grills to go into it so you have a surface to cook on. If you order one of the variable rack systems on its own, you'll get a full set of the V-bar grills with drip trays included in that purchase. You can also buy additional V-bar grills or additional round bar grill surfaces if that's something that you want for your grill. So now let's start talking about the design details of the grills. And the first thing I want to point out is we have designed the G2 and G3 as charcoal grills. Okay, and that's why the front of the grill doesn't fold down and there's no brasero, there's no burn box next to the grill in order to, say, burn timber down into coals to put under the grill, because we've designed this for burning charcoal. Now, that's not to say you can't put wood in it. Absolutely, you can burn timber in here, and we've tested it with firewood and it works incredibly well. But the primary fuel source for this grill is charcoal. That's our design intent. In the future, we will be releasing a wood-fired version of this grill with the brasero, that burn box, as part of the design. But the existing model is a charcoal grill. So that's the first thing that we want you to know. The question we've had a bunch of times is, shouldn't you have some vents in the sides or in the front to let air in to feed the fire? When you're using charcoal, you need very little oxygen in order to burn charcoal, because it's basically pure carbon. It burns incredibly well with very little air. And so unless you were to completely cover the top surface of the grill, and I mean completely with steak, like edge to edge, you're not going to starve the charcoal of the air it needs to combust. So We don't need to have vents and things in the sides. The downside of having vents and things like that is that it's just another area to collect grease and dirt. And that's one of the design criteria that we had for these grills, was to minimize seams wherever possible, to keep seams to an absolute minimum. So you'll notice this front face, this is one continuous piece all the way over, which means it's a lot easier to clean than it would be if we'd made it of, say, 2 or 3 panels with lots of joints. The most important design concept for our firebox is the fact that it is insulated. Most of the grills that you'll find out there on the market are comprised of a stainless steel box with a 25mm fire brick lining. And that looks really good. The only issue is that fire brick is very, very conductive. So if you were to take a firebox made with a 25mm fire brick and let's say 2mm of stainless steel, and you were to run that firebox at 500 degrees Celsius, the outside temperature of that stainless steel would be well over 400 degrees, which is really very hot. And that has 3 key disadvantages. First is fuel efficiency. An uninsulated firebox is going to consume a lot more charcoal than you would otherwise. It's also harder to regulate the temperature because heat is being sucked out of the firebox constantly through the walls and the floor by the surrounding air. And so you're losing that temperature, and it makes it harder to manage your firebox and the temperature that you're trying to achieve. Second, and a little more concerning, is safety. If you have a 400 degree surface and someone brushes against that, touches it even for an instant, they are going to get burnt. Okay, that's a fact. And so if you have little kids running around, which often you do when you're entertaining, a grill like that has to be very carefully managed to make sure that no one goes anywhere near it except you. Now, I'm not suggesting that our grill doesn't require supervision, but I'll cover that a little bit later. The third disadvantage of a grill built with an uninsulated firebox is that if you want to build it into an alfresco, you don't want a freestanding one on wheels, you want to build it in, you're going to have to make that bench top out of completely non-combustible materials. So usually that means you're going to have to go with a reinforced concrete structure, as opposed to, say, timber cabinetry. That's where our insulated firebox comes in. So we do have a stainless steel wall. It's 2mm thick, which is excessive, frankly. We could have gone a lot thinner, but we went nice and thick because we want to make something that's going to last. It's going to stand the test of time. Inside of that, we have 50mm of calcium silicate insulation board, which is an incredible refractory insulation material. It's amazing material. And on the inside of that, we have a 25mm fire brick. And that's for the walls and the floor of our firebox. The advantages of that are profound. So if we were to run our grill at 500 degrees Celsius in the firebox, the outside temperature of this surface would be around 60 degrees. Okay, much lower than you would get with an uninsulated grill. And that has 3 advantages to it. So the first is fuel efficiency. We're going to use a lot less charcoal in this grill than we would in a grill that's uninsulated. It also means that the fire brick becomes thermal mass that we heat up with the charcoal. And that, because it's insulated, gives you very stable heat above the firebox. So when you're cooking, you won't notice these fluctuations in temperature. If the charcoal dies down a little bit, the heat will very slowly drop away, but not suddenly, because you've got all of this thermal mass here storing heat to continue cooking your food. It damps out the changes in temperature. The second advantage is safety, okay? Because we now only have 60 degrees on the outside face in the case of a 500 degree firebox, if someone was to run up and touch that, they might be a little surprised. It's quite warm, but they're not going to be burned. Now, we have actually pushed our grills hard. So we did some stress testing on them to see, well, if someone was kind of irresponsible and was just seeing how much charcoal they could burn, how hot could they get
the grill. We have taken our grill to over 800 Celsius, just over 800. And it took a lot of doing. We had to fill the firebox with charcoal to get there. But when we did that and we held that temperature for about 4 hours to reach steady state, which is where all the temperatures through the materials stabilize, we found that we got a maximum temperature on the outside of the grill of 120 degrees Celsius. Now that is quite hot, but we were still able to touch the side of it, register the heat, and take our hand away without being burnt. Okay, now again, I'm not suggesting that you should just let the kids run around and slap their hands on the grill. They'll leave fingerprints on it, and you don't want that. But one of the beauties of this design is that it is safer than an uninsulated grill. So again, I'm not saying let the kids run up and stick their hands on it, but if they were to do that, if you were talking to a friend and you got a little distracted and one of the kids runs past you and touches the outside, they're going to get a shock. If you were running the grill super hot, they would get surprised, but you shouldn't have to take them to hospital, okay? Because that insulation is incredible stuff. So that's the second benefit, is safety. The third benefit is the fact that you can build this into timber cabinetry. Because we don't have to worry about setting our cabinetry on fire as much as we would with an uninsulated grill, you don't have to build this into a concrete bench. You can, there's no harm, but you can build this into timber cabinetry. Now, the only thing you need to do if you are building it into timber cabinetry, two things. You need to allow a 20mm air gap around the sides of the grill that are up against the cabinetry. Second is you need to line that void in your cabinetry with either 18mm compressed cement sheet or 20mm of natural stone like granite or marble. Okay, and that will ensure that even if you did run your grill at some excessive temperature, you have zero chance of causing damage to that timber cabinetry. So that's one of the key design sort of benefits of the insulated grill, is that you can build it straight into timber cabinetry. So let's talk about the variable rack system. We'll go with the basics and then we'll get into how it works. So we have, in the variable rack system, there are 3 levels. We have the variable rack, so that goes up and down using this hand wheel, okay? And I'm right-handed, not very coordinated, but I'm not the strongest man in the world. And you can see it's easy, it's smooth. And when I show you the internals, you'll understand why. Okay, so we have this beautiful cast stainless hand wheel here. Gorgeous, with our Flamesmith logo on there. I absolutely love it. But that's our variable rack. So that comes up and down at will. No brake, right? A lot of the competition have sort of a brake that you have to engage or disengage when you want to lower the grill. And I can talk a little bit more about that later, why we don't have that. But no brake at all, just stop wherever you like. Then we have the optional rack. This is legitimately optional. It's not something that you have to buy. This is an optional extra that you can include if you want. Because you can see, if I was to raise this all the way up, so I'll just bring that all the way up. Now you imagine if I'm cooking on this surface, I am getting very close now to this surface. Like, oh, how can I cook in here? Okay, so the only time you would be using the optional rack is if you were cooking further down, right? So if you had your variable rack, say at maybe this height, then you could use this to cook on. So we could take, say, our round bars and throw them up here, okay? And I could be cooking something on this surface at the same time. And that's what's, I think, really cool about this system, is that you don't just have to cook on this surface. You can if you want, you could just be cooking on here, but you could also have something up here, and you could have something else right up the top. Okay, so it is an optional rack, and that means it can be removed. So just grab this, lift that off, and we've removed the optional rack. Okay, and so now I can wind this all the way up to the full height, because it does come up. I believe the travel, off the top of my head, is 340 millimeters total travel, which is quite a lot. So I can bring that all the way up there and be cooking at full height if I wanted to do that. Okay, so that's the idea of the optional rack, is that you can remove it if you're not using it. If you want to cook right up high, you can take the optional rack right off. Okay, let's get this down. And let's say you did want to use the optional rack. So I'll pop it on. The first thing that you should ask yourself is, well, hold on, that was very easy to take off. Is it going to fall off while I'm using it? And thankfully the answer is no. So we use the CNC machined buttons here as guides, and that'll just drop on really nicely. And we have actually machined these profiles such that once it's on, it won't pivot off. In either direction, it will lock if you try to push down. So if someone, for some reason, pushed down really hard on this, I don't know why you would want to do that, but if you did, it wouldn't be an issue. It's not going to fall off. Okay, so that's our optional rack here. So we could have grilling up here. Just move them up. So we could have maybe a pan up here while we've got steaks down here, something like that. So that's the optional rack level. Then we come right up to the top to, effectively, you could think of this as a resting rack. Okay, and put this all the way up here. And I could have all of my grills up there. I could have pineapple hanging off this, or a duck, so it could hang food from these grills or even from the bars. But if you want to get food right over the coals, ideally you want to hang more centrally. You can also hang off this shaft here. This is thick. This is not hollow. This is solid stainless steel, this shaft here. So you can actually hang things from that as well. So just be aware of that. The other thing, of course, that you should know is it's not just the round bars that can move, it's also the V-bars. Okay, so these all move and will all fit on all of the levels. Okay, so I could put this right down the bottom if I wanted to, or right up the top. I like to have these on my variable rack. That's just the way I use the grills. But yes, so that's the rack system. It's to give you more than one cooking surface. I see a lot of these grills and all they have is the variable rack. That's the focus. It's like Argentinian grill, you've got the raising and lowering, and that's all you want. But you've got all this heat that your firebox is generating. It's still hot above the variable rack. Even if you've got a whole bunch of steaks on there, lots of heat is coming up past those steaks, for example, and would get into food up here. So that's why we have that. It was something that was requested with one of our early commercial grills. They said, we want the raising and lowering rack, but we also want a resting rack right up high. And I said, all right, done. And so we put that into our production model here. All right, so we've discussed the rack system and moving these grill surfaces around. And I apologize for the names of things. I'm an engineer. I care much more about how things work than the name that they're called. So this is our V-bar grill surface and this is our round bar grill surface. I want to talk a little bit about those. The round bar grill surface, first thing you'll notice is it's heavy. It's really heavy, it's solid. These side plates are 6 millimeters thick. The bars themselves are 10 millimeters thick. And these are actually CNC machined with holes tapped in either end, so they're bolted together. Okay, now the bolts actually go in 20 mil into these bars, so these are incredibly strong. They also look good. They're like CNC machined all the way around. We've got this beautiful chamfer on the edge of the side plate. So I don't know, I just think they're pretty. Now another thing about these is that we've designed them so that they'll fit in your sink, because that's one of the most irritating things in my mind about grilling and barbecuing is sometimes you just want to clean things up and the grill plate you get off is enormous and it just won't fit in the sink for you. So these are a good size, but they're still small enough to fit into your sink while still being like pretty large. All right, so that's our round bar grill. Now, in terms of what you're going to cook on this, that's up to you. Okay, but one of the key things you can do on here is get some fantastic sear lines on your steak. Okay, so that's what we had in mind when we were designing this, was you could put this right down in the bottom, in the firebox, get that really hot, and you throw some steaks on there and you're gonna get some beautiful lines on them. So the V-Bar grill is inherently an Argentinian idea, I believe. It's something that you see in every Argentinian grill, those V-bars to run off some of the oil and fat that's coming off your meat and catch it so that you don't get as many flare-ups. Because if you just cook steak, say you've got a great big tomahawk steak and you cooked it on the round bar grill, all of that fat that drips down into the firebox is going to combust. You're going to get flames coming up off that, and you get this sort of sooty smoke that comes back up to the meat and kind of coats the underside of it. And it's not the best flavor, and that's why we have this V-Bar grill, is to run off. It won't catch all of it, but it's going to catch probably the majority of oil that's coming off that meat, and it's going to catch it in this cast stainless drip tray. This is a custom design that we've made, and we're really, really proud of it. It's pretty cool. So all of your delicious oil is going to drip off into here, and then you could have like a little bunch of rosemary and be basting your meat with the drippings while you're doing it, or collect it and use it to make gravy and things like that. A little bit on the design side of things. I'm so much more comfortable talking about the design side of things than I am the food side, because I'm not a chef and I know it. I'm an engineer right to the core. So let's talk about the design side. So again, we've got our folded stainless steel sections front and back. I'm just going to show you a little bit of the underside here. One of the key things is the profile here. We've wrapped this around so that you can't accidentally pivot this off. So if you were to put a whole bunch of force on this for some reason, again, I can't imagine how, it will lock on the rack at the back because of this little return here. How they're made, I don't know. A lot of companies are a little sensitive about showing you that stuff, but I'd rather you knew, because I think it's something we want to tell you about. So we have a Kempe MIG welder specifically set up to weld stainless steel. And so we MIG weld these V-bars onto our folded plates, front and back. We then passivate all of these welds to clean them, to remove the discoloration that the welding causes, and then we neutralize that and clean them. When you get your grill, we always recommend give all of your grill surfaces a good clean before you use them, because we are not doctors, we're not handling these with latex gloves, but we will clean them before we pack them up. They don't just come straight off the production line. They've got this pretty cool shape here at the front, and that is very, very important. That is for the drip tray. The drip tray has these two protrusions at the back to hold it onto the V-Bar grill. And the shape here is incredibly important. We actually experimented with 4 different styles because this is going to be full of hot oil. You do not want that to fall off while you're using the grill. Okay, it has to be secure. So put it in, just go to your left and down, and now I can wiggle it around and it won't just fall off. I can't bump it off unintentionally. I have to lift it and come across. So if I want to, I just lift, come across, and it'll come off. But we've designed this so that it won't come off by accident, because that would be quite dangerous, frankly. You don't want hot oil being spilled on you. So those are our V-Bar grills. So they can be bought separately. You can buy extra if you want. You might want some more to use, but if you buy the variable rack system, so in the case of the G3 variable rack system, you'll get 3 sets of V-Bar grills. With the G2, you get 2 sets. All right, but yeah, we hope you like them. We put an awful lot of effort into them. Actually, another thing I will say before I finish up is the V-bars themselves, these are 3 millimeters thick. Most of the research we did, we found they were around 2 millimeters thick, and I wanted them to be a little thicker. I wanted a bit more consistent heat to be held in them, but I also wanted to be able to radius the edges of the bars so that they weren't sharp. So they're not going to cut into the protein that the meat, the fish, etc., that you're going to put on here. So we've actually rounded all of the edges on these bars to make them a bit more forgiving on the meat you're putting on there. Now, we actually have another grilling surface that's on its way. It's called the plancher. It's made of grey ductile cast iron, and it's a flat plate. Okay, so you may not want to cook, you might want to cook an egg, for example. You don't really want to do that on a bar grill. Not going to work very well. So we have the plancher coming, and so hopefully we'll have those here in a couple of months' time. The other thing that we're working on, and I know you're about to ask, is, well, what about a rotisserie? And one of the things you'll see in the variable rack is there are 2 holes on the front, 2 holes on the back, on both sides. Those are our mounting points for the rotisserie, the spit that we're going to have front and back. Okay, so they'll be optional extras. They will retrofit to all of our grills. So they will fit straight onto this, and then you'll be able to have a spit over charcoal and have full control over the heat that's getting into it. Because I've dealt with spits in the past, and the most annoying thing about them is trying to adjust the height of the spit mid-cook. Okay, because you realize, oh, we don't have quite enough heat, right, we need to lower it. And typically they're usually held with like a little butterfly screw or something, and you have to hold it and lower it down and then tighten it up again, and everything's kind of hot and greasy, and it's just not a pleasant experience. Whereas with this, you'll have your spit going and just wind it down. Okay, beautiful thing. So that will be coming. We're also working on a Cypriot style grill system, which will be a whole array of skewers rotating as well. So there are lots of things that we have planned for these grills. They'll be coming out in the next 12 months. So keep an eye out for those as well. One other optional extra that we have available right now is the windshield. So this is 3 panels that are bolted together that you easily just drop onto the back of the grill to the 4 bolts that are waiting there, do it up, and you've got yourself a fantastic protection against wind from the rear of the grill. So we have these for the G2, which is what you see here, and for the G3. So let us know if you're interested in one of those. Okay, so now to the really nerdy part of this discussion, and that is talking about how the variable rack system works. So when you're doing your research, you're looking around for an asado and an Argentinian grill with that raising and lowering system. What you will find, you may find something that looks quite similar to this, but I can guarantee it operates differently. The majority that I have seen utilize a hand wheel of some description, usually on the end. So you can wind it over here. It'll have a ratchet and pull mechanism, so click, 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 and then it locks in place. And then you have a brake that you release, so you have to wind it up a bit, release the brake, and then wind it down. When you are doing that, what's happening is you're driving this drive shaft across the center here, and most of the ones that I've seen have a stainless steel cable that wraps around this shaft and travels down to sort of a hitch point on either side of their variable rack. The issue with that is they snap. Now, they don't snap straight away, but they take a little bit of time, but eventually those cables will snap. And I can say that because of experience. One of the first Argentinian grills we made, we used that system. We used the braided stainless steel woven wire rope, and we used it. And what we found was, after about 6 months in a commercial environment, the cable started to fray. And it's called metal fatigue. And if you want to test out metal fatigue at home, go for it. Just go and get a spoon, preferably not like your wife's favorite spoon, but get a spoon out of the cutlery drawer and just bend it forwards and backwards a few times. And it doesn't take very long to snap it in half. That's metal fatigue. Okay, it's the same thing with the wire rope. When it's wrapped over this tight radius cylinder, you're bending it effectively. You're taking that rope and you're bending it, and then when you bring it back over, you're unbending it. And you do that a few times, and eventually the braids start to fray. And eventually the cable will snap. Now, in defense of that design, most suppliers who utilize that design will give you a free set of cables spare. when you buy the grill. So it's not to say that that's a bad design. It's just a feature of that design is that the cables will eventually snap. I got tired of that because I didn't like getting phone calls at 9:30 p.m. From a restaurant saying, hey, our cable's snapped, like we need a replacement. That's not ideal. So I decided when I made the next version that I was going to use a completely different method. And that is what I have done. So in here, you will find no cables at all. But what you will find is roller chain, stainless steel roller chain, like you would see on, say, a heavy duty mountain bike, for example. And that is what is doing the lifting. So this is the internals of our variable rack system, and it's something I am incredibly proud of. We worked really hard for 2 full years. We went through 9 different prototypes to come to this design, and so very, very proud of it and very excited to show it to all of you. And what we have in here, we have, firstly out here, you have the hand wheel. Monospoke, custom design by Matt, one of my very talented employees, designed this hand wheel, and that's connected through on a 15mm diameter solid stainless steel shaft to a stainless steel worm gear. That drives this bronze worm wheel, okay? And it's just beautiful. Now this is lightly greased, and we provide you with extra grease in the care package that you get with every variable rack system. So this is a high temperature food safe grease that we use to lubricate this worm gear system. And one of the things about worm gears is they're self-braking. Okay, I could try to turn this main shaft as hard as I wanted. It will not rotate this gear, it just won't. Okay, so that's what's happening here. So we have this, the hand wheel drives this worm gear set, and that drives this shaft that runs across the center of the grill to the other side. Now you say, all right, that's all well and good. You've got this worm gear, cool. But how does that lift and lower the rack? Because you were saying there's no cables, and there aren't any cables. But what you will see is this roller chain. So hiding in here, there's stainless steel roller chain. Think of it as bike chain. Okay, it's just a little bit more heavy duty than your standard bike chain. That runs over the top of a sprocket that's hiding behind this worm wheel here. Okay, and so the teeth on that sprocket are picking up that chain and pulling up on this, we call this our linear bushing block. Okay, that's being lifted by that chain. Okay, and the same thing is happening on the other side. We have another sprocket at the other end that's connected to another bushing block. Okay, now the bushing block itself is really cool. So this is cast aluminium, and the top and bottom we have 2 bronze graphite impregnated bushings. Okay, they have to be freeze fitted into this, so we freeze them in liquid nitrogen and fit them into our aluminium bushing block here, and they then provide the support. They're like guides that are running on these solid 20mm diameter stainless steel columns here. Okay, and so that's what's giving us the rigidity in this system. And you will notice there is a little bit of movement. And that's very deliberate, because when everything expands, so again, we've tested this up to 800 Celsius. When we take everything to 800 Celsius, things expand. The racks get longer. Okay, the body of the grill moves out just slightly. But if everything in here was super tight, it would just bind up and stop working. Okay, so we have designed those tolerances into the grill so that when it's cold, it's all designed to be pulled in to a certain point, and we have everything tuned sort of so that when it expands to its maximum, there's still play, there's still movement, and you won't find it binding on you. Okay, so that's what's pulling it. Now the other thing you'll see in here are these springs. Okay, so there are 3 springs, 2 that are pulling directly up on the bushing block. There's another 2 on the other side, and there's another one pulling down on the chain to keep tension on it. Those springs are made from Inconel. If you've never heard of Inconel, don't worry, most people haven't. Inconel is most commonly found in gas turbines, in the high pressure stages of a gas turbine or in the manifolds of rocket engines. So not things that we deal with every day, but it is an incredible material. Think of it as super stainless steel. Okay, so it's non-corrosive, it will not corrode, but it also retains all of its mechanical properties, so its strength, its stiffness. It retains those all the way up to very high temperatures. So these springs will continue providing the spring force that we need even when your grill is running red hot and has been doing so all day. Okay, now the reason we have those springs is to actually take some of the pressure off your hand. So the springs are actually lifting the variable rack to take some of the load that's currently on it. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why the rack is just so easy to raise and lower, is because it's spring assisted. All right, so that's some of the, I guess, the key highlights of the grill. When you get up close and personal with one, you'll see more things. You'll see little facets that we've done, like the chevrons have a lovely, this chamfer CNC machined all around them. We've put in an extraordinary amount of effort into the design and into the manufacture of our grills. These are Australian made and we are very proud of that. Okay, so if you have any questions about our grills, please reach out to us. Feel free to call, send us an email, just reach out, and myself and my team will be really happy to answer any questions you have.